Hello and welcome back to another episode of Soul Focused Radio. This is your host, Martin Friedman, and I'm joined once again by our CEO of the Soul Focused Group, Ragivah Mahdi.
Yes.
Yes. Welcome, Ragivah Mahdi. I'm so excited once again to be here with you having this podcast. And this one I'm really excited about because we're going to talk about one of my favorite words. And one of my favorite words is the word empower. We're going to talk about what does it mean to be empowered, right? And I love this word. I think you and I share this in common. We both love to break words down, right?
Right.
And, em in Latin means to give, right? And so empower or empowered, literally what it means to be empowered, it means to give power or that somebody has given you power, right? So we've talked about this a lot over the years that to give someone power, empower means that you're the one controlling the power and you can also withdraw it at any time. So I'm really excited to hear from you exactly what you think it means to be empowered.
Well, I'm excited, first of all, about this subject matter.
Yes, sir.
Because we look out into the world, what we see so many people who are disempowered. Dis being the prefix meaning moving away from, being separated from. So you have disempowered, being separated from your power. And then, as you said, the M is Latin.
Yeah, Latin root to give, or not root, but Latin prefix to give.
To give. Now, the irony of this is that disempowered is to be distracted from, to move away from your power. And empowered is just to give yourself the power you once were distracted away from, to give it back to yourself. The biggest misconception of empowering somebody is that you are actually giving power to someone else, which is never the case because we all have our own power. We all self-contained with power. But what we can do is we help people to understand that they don't need permission. They don't need permission to exercise the power that they already have. In fact, they need to accept responsibility for it. You know, so many things that we've been taught and socialized to believe have been designed to distract us, because that's what I believe disempowerment actually comes from, being distracted from ourselves, like being with yourself 24 hours a day and still coming out not knowing who you are and why you're here is an indication that you were distracted from yourself, and your natural self is your power. So being empowered means I'm no longer distracted from myself. I'm highly self-aware. I'm learning how to utilize all of my gifts and my abilities to benefit me first and then others second. In that order, because to be empowered has to be where I'm able to fulfill the desires of my own heart first, in order for me to be able to feel and know that I have power.
So, yeah, thank you for clarifying that, because the definition that I was using is one that falls in line with when we talked about disempowerment. We said that it comes from external sources, right? That it's an external process of disempowerment. And there's a false idea that I came in contact with when I was working in social service nonprofits. You know, literally, I worked for an organization where the CEO would pass out cards that said that she was in the empowerment business, right? So that's an external process saying we're giving power to other people. We're empowering poor women that are experiencing poverty. We're empowering poor children and poor families that are experiencing poverty. So what I hear you saying is that continues to buy into the idea that we can get power from external sources, and that there's a false narrative there.
Right. There's a difference between authority and power. We have collective authority, which we give to like politicians and people in leadership positions, where we say to them, we vote for them and we give them the authority to act on our behalf. That's authority. Power is a little different. You know, we do have collective power that systems and institutions make up. Once again, that is given to the systems and institutions by us. So our individual power is collectivized to create collective power or systemic power. The reality is the only way we really lose our power or become disempowered is if we are distracted from it or we move away from it in our own thinking. In other words, we see ourselves as not good enough. We see ourselves as not being worthy. That is the beginning of us moving away from our power, because our power is in our natural expression. When you abandon your natural expression, as I said on the last podcast, you move away from your edge. You move away from your secret weapon, because we are each designed and created to be unique, one of a kind beings. In being one of a kind, our edge is in trusting the natural expression that comes with, that makes up that one of a kindness. When we start second guessing our natural expression, or we take our eyes off of our natural expression to focus on someone else's, we become disempowered, because I can't drive you. I can't drive my life like you drive yours. Neither can you drive your life the way I drive mine,
Right.
because we are designed to do something different. But if I'm watching you all the time, Martin, and not paying attention to my own natural propensities, my own natural strengths, then what happens is I don't learn how to utilize the abilities I possess naturally within myself.
I got you. So what we're saying then is that nobody can disempower you but you. And therefore nobody can empower you but you.
Ultimately.
What it means to be empowered ultimately, right? So what it means to be empowered is finding our own power despite external attempts at disempowerment through everything we talked about in the last podcast, race identity and gender identity and identity around sexual orientation or ability or age or any of these things, right? We're saying that the only way that you can be disempowered is if you start to internalize those things about yourself. Therefore, to be empowered, you have to start to internalize exactly who you are, being 100% on your own side.
Right. That brings me to the conversation about rejection, right? Because when we talk about disempowered and being empowered, we are talking about the difference between rejection and redirection. So if a stranger who does not know you were to say something derogatory to you, somebody that you are not even interested in, whether or not if they accept you or not, when they would say something derogatory, you would not even get upset, because you know that they don't know you and you're not trying to gain acceptance from them. So you just brush it off. That for you, that would be like, oh, that person need medication or something, right? But if it's someone who you want approval from, someone you want to be accepted by, then when they turn you down, they say something derogatory to you, you take it as rejection, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you experienced that before?
Have I? Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely, I have. Yes.
Right. But when that's being disempowered, because what's happening is the way you are looking at yourself, you have shifted authority over to someone else to determine for you whether or not you're good enough or not.
Right.
When that happens, it puts us in a position of disempowerment. Now, when we are empowered, meaning we are not turning over our power to someone else, we are beholding of our own power. When someone we want to be accepted by says they want to accept us, we take it as redirection, not as rejection. In other words, we take it as, you are just telling me I'm not the right one for you, or you're not the right one for me. Thank you for not wasting my time. It creates a different state of mind in which we operate from when we are in our power. Think of empowered as another word of saying, I'm in my power. Because that's what it's really saying phonetically. I'm in my power. I'm empowered. I'm in it. I'm not being moved by nothing on the outside of me to let go of my power. Listen, this world figured out a long time ago the best way to stop people from being as powerful as they can be is to get them to stop themselves. The only way to get people to stop themselves is to get people to doubt the very essence of their power, which is their natural expression. So the minute you start trying to be like someone else, you are out of your power. That's disempowerment. Empowerment is being in your power, meaning being in harmony or in alignment with your natural expression. You are not trying to be anyone else but you.
I laughed earlier when you asked me had I ever experienced that before. And I would say, I'm 57 years old. I would say I've lived the majority of my life looking externally for validation.
Right.
And, that's been that's a family thing for me, a thing that definitely took place in terms of the anti-racist organizing movement, that I've been a part of for more than 26 years. And, just always looking for that external validation. And, we talked about this in the last podcast, but this concept of self-doubt, I think was always the thing that ultimately kept me from feeling empowered, self-empowered in my own power. That's the thing that always kept me there. Is I would doubt my ability to evaluate myself accurately. And I always look to somebody externally to evaluate me.
Well, the world sets us up in terms of programming where we make ourselves susceptible to want to hear what other people think about us and to want to hear how other people see us. And then based upon that, we then turn over, without even realizing unconsciously, we turn over authority to someone else. And we essentially say, tell me who I am. Tell me what my worth is. Tell me if I matter. And when someone tells you that you don't matter, someone tells you that you're not worth very much, then you live into that identity. But we open ourselves up to it because of the socialization that we receive as children. Now, to be empowered means we have to take back the authority we unconsciously gave. See, like from the age of 0 to 7, we're in that theta phase of brain frequency where we are in a hyper state of learning because the world is already in motion. We're born into this world. The world doesn't stop to let us catch up, so we have to learn at a rapid rate of speed. And that during that time, we are not conscious at all. So there's so many programs, so many decisions, so many narratives, so many ways of looking at things that are being downloaded into our subconscious mind without us being conscious of, meaning we're not consciously choosing these things. And so what happens is by the time we wake up into consciousness around 6 or 7 years old, our base program for our life has already been set. And in that base program, you will find this constant narrative. You are not worthy. You are not good enough. You need to do something to become good enough. That is like the baseline of our programming in this world. Now, the thing is, the journey to becoming the butterfly, because that's when we start becoming the caterpillar. We start becoming the caterpillar when we wake up to the fact that we believe that we're not good enough. We believe we're not pretty enough. We believe we're not smart enough. And then during that time, we are actually fighting against ourselves. We are going into a state of disempowerment. The caterpillar is that state of disempowerment where we are crawling. And it's more symbolic because in nature, there's nothing wrong with the caterpillar, but symbolically, when you look at it in comparison to human beings, it's a good picture of what happens within ourselves, how even though we have all these magical abilities, how when we are not in harmony with ourselves, we end up having to crawl and just barely survive in order to make it, right?
Right.
So then when we become conscious, which for most of us, we don't become conscious of, really conscious of these programs until we may be 40 years old. The average one of us don't wake up till we're 40. And the reason why we wake up is because we see ourselves on the yellow brick road, but we never get to the Emerald City. Is that constantly, we're almost there, but we never get there. And, if you think about Dorothy's story of the Wizard of Oz is symbolic. Her getting to the Emerald City is telling you that she wanted to get to where she wanted to get so bad that she was willing to do anything to get there. And so she woke up to the ultimate truth. And what was the ultimate truth for Dorothy? That the wizard was full of shit. The wizard was not real. So all of us in our brain have to come into contact with the reality that the wizard is not real. In other words, the world that has been defining who you are is not real. In other words, it is a social construction. All the things you think you are, identity-wise, are not who you are. They are what you are. And what you are should never be more powerful than who you are. So when we start wanting to reclaim who we are, we start wanting to express our natural expression, it is then we start the transformation process into the monarch butterfly, or into the butterfly, where we begin to spread our wings and live our life fully. That's empowered. We are putting our arms around our natural expression. We're loving on ourselves now, as opposed to looking at ourselves from a dirty lens that says we're not enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not smart enough, we're not light enough, our hair is not straight enough. Whatever the bullshit is that this world has taught you, we got to leave that stuff behind in order to become empowered, to be with your power.
Yeah, thank you for that. I have a question for you. I hear you use, and I think, all of us, that talk to you and our listeners on these podcasts, we hear you use the terminology, the world, a lot.
Right.
Like the world tells us, the world lies to us, the world is a social construct. Can you just break that down for a minute? What do you mean when you say the world lies to us, the world tells us? What do you mean by that?
The world for all of us is that which existed before you came into this reality.
Mm-hmm.
So all the agreements, the laws, the ways of doing things, all the things that were in existence when you were born is the world.
Okay.
So it's everything that comes before you was the world, and the world is then communicating what the world communicates. And it just so happens that we came into the world, and the world was still lying to us, still telling us we were fucked up.
Mm.
So now, what becomes our job? We take on the job of transforming the world. Why? Because we feel within ourselves that we're not being all of who we are, and we say to ourselves in our own heart, there must be more to me than this. There must be more to life than this. And then so what we do, we set out to change the world, right? So what we are trying to do is change the world so that the world would start emanating a different message to those that the children are being born. So when the children are born and come into this, whatever came before them, the message is different. The message is now be yourself, accept your own, be yourself, embrace who you are, love your natural expression, flap your wings and fly from the very beginning, skip the caterpillar phase and go straight into living as a butterfly, because we are changing the way the message the world is going to be giving to them. When we came in, the message wasn't that. And the reason why it's changing is because we're changing it. We're determining that we want the world to say something different than it's said to us.
And the world told us what it was telling us because people benefited off of that. A small group of people benefit off of the vast majority of people feeling like we are disempowered, feeling like we have no power, correct?
Yes.
Basically feeling like we're shit, like we can never not be caterpillars, like our race isn't good enough, our gender isn't good enough, our religion isn't good enough, nothing is good enough. That's being told to us. The world that was created before we came here tells us those things because it's beneficial to a small group of people, correct?
Well, it's beneficial to them to the degree in which they understand. But in reality, is not beneficial. But if you are limited in your understanding, if your wisdom is not ancient, then you would take this route in order to remain in control of the world. But if your wisdom was ancient, you would know that the best route is for everybody to be empowered, because in an empowered world, you have a healthy world. You have a world where people are not suffering. You have a world where you can sleep at night. You have a world where people are healthy. You have a world where people are happy and people are growing, and we are experiencing the totality of what life can offer. The people who decided to go this route, the oppression route, had to keep oppressing in order to stay in power, to stay in their brand of power. But we knew that that power would come to an end because it's not natural. It is not natural. If it was natural, then we'd be happy in this state. But none of us are happy in this state of not being with our own natural self, right? So one of the things that we want more than anything else in the world is so natural. We want ourselves. We want all of ourselves. We come into this world to experience all of who we are in the amount of time that we have to experience it, which requires us to do what? To be in harmony with our natural expression, period.
And that's what it means to be empowered.
That's what it means to be empowered. I'm empowered means I'm one with my natural expression. I am no longer altering myself for anyone. So I don't care what you acquire, whether it be a car, a house, a business. If you are altering your natural expression to get it, you are not going to be happy, because it's not the material thing that makes you happy. It is the exercising of your natural expression to achieve the goal that makes you happy. That's where happiness comes from. The fact that you applied your natural expression to produce whatever you produced or to achieve whatever you achieve. So if you leave it out, all you're doing is creating unhappiness for yourself, depression, frustration, regret. All that comes with it, because what you're regretting, what you're frustrated about, is that you keep altering yourself for the world. We are powerful. We are more powerful than the world.
Right. But like we talked about on the last podcast, what it means to be disempowered is to not believe that, to not know it and not believe it. And what it means to be empowered then is to believe that we are more powerful than the world. And what I'm coming to understand from working with you and just reaching a higher level of understanding around this is that, we need to create, when you talk about giving different messages to our children, what we're saying is literally creating a new world, and that we have the power to be the ones that create that world. When I said benefit before, the small group that benefits, it's a material benefit, right?
Right.
And then they've fooled us to believing that being empowered is to have, a power over, which gets us material benefits. And what I hear you saying, and what I'm 100% in line with, is that we are saying that we need to create a world where everybody feels in their own power, connected to their own power, in harmony with themselves. And that's when we start to see long-term transformational change.
Definitely. See, because what we must understand is that human beings need power, need to feel their power to be fully human. When a human being becomes disconnected, disempowered, disconnected from their natural expression, we morph into something more beast-like. We start acting more like an animal than we do a being in human form. Because we have to be in contact with our natural expression, because our natural expression is how our soul communicates to us in real time. So when we are disconnected from that, when we have cognitive dissonance, when we are thinking one thing but feeling something else, and we're constantly in that tug of war within ourselves, it causes us to morph into something that is not beautiful. Every human being has the potential to be a beautiful expression of life. But we live in a world, because all the world is, that, like I said, the social construct that existed before we came in. So when we came into this world, there was a social construction, right? There was definitions, there were narratives, there were rules, there were laws, and all that shit is socially constructed. But the way they were designed to, like I said before, oppress, hold people down. So our job has been to reconstruct the world such that no one has to hide, no one has to morph themselves, no one has to be in the closet. We could all be out in the open and enjoy life. But some people's minds haven't been that big enough to see a world where everybody can have what they desire. Everybody. My teacher told me this a long time ago when I was going through my training process. And he says, the root problem in the world, the socially constructed agreements that existed before we were born, is that we have socially constructed a rule that says that everybody doesn't deserve to have it good. And you'd be hard pressed to find anybody. I mean, you go talk to the most righteous of the righteous, supposedly, and you ask them, who on earth doesn't deserve to have it good? And I promise you, they will point out a group that they believe doesn't deserve to have it good. And as long as that idea is socially constructed into our mind, into our way of thinking, we're gonna have a problem. Because you got to believe and know that everybody deserves to have it good. Because if everybody has it good, then everybody has it good. And if everybody has it good, we all can live good. We have to purge out of our mind this idea that there are some people that deserve to have it better than others.
Right. And everybody means you too,
Yeah.
right? Because we have this deficit mentality, definitely thinking about racism. Like, white folks feel like if we give up our power over, there's a collective unconscious belief in this, even if there's on a conscious level, we don't believe this. I believe that there's a collectively unconscious belief that if we give up what we see as power and access, and, that we disproportionately deserve the good, that bad things will happen to us. But what you're saying, and I want you to say it again, is that everybody deserves good. Everybody means you still, us still, right? Everybody.
Yes, we definitely have to include ourselves in that, because if we don't include ourselves in that, then we're a hypocrite.
Right.
Right. So, but the reality is everybody deserves to have it good, just like God is the perfect good for us all. And so when we say God, we are saying that everybody deserves to have it good. But the way we've constructed in our minds, socially constructed, made up. In other words, we told ourselves a story over and over again that there were certain people that didn't deserve to have it good. And then we started warring and killing each other based upon that idea. But the reality is we have to go back to what it was in the garden before the social construction that everybody doesn't deserve to have it good, or before the social construction that there's something you have to do in order to qualify to be who you already are.
Mm.
See, because your natural expression, you don't have to qualify to be your total self. All you got to do is accept your own and be yourself. This world tricked us, the social construction, the messages tricked us into believing that there was something we had to do to qualify. You're not pretty enough, so then you got to go get some surgery. You got to do some stuff. You know, you're not smart enough, so you got to go to the schools and you got to get a whole bunch of degrees and whatnot. And it reminds me of in the story of the Wizard of Oz when they found out the wizard was a fake, and the scarecrow kept saying, "No, I'm not going to get a brain." And the person who was pretending to be the wizard, who wasn't, laughed and he said, "Silly scarecrow, you had a brain the entire time. You just needed a diploma to prove it."
Mm.
So many of us, that's what we after. I know some people I've worked with, brothers and sisters who got degrees hanging on their wall, and no room on the wall to put them no more, and they still haven't convinced themselves that they're smart. They still think that there's something else, another certificate, another degree that they need to get in order to prove to the world that they're intelligent. Meanwhile, they have never learned how to utilize their own creative genius to benefit themselves. They've helped other people make money. They help other people organize their life, organize their business, but their knowledge does not benefit them. That is disempowered. Being in your power starts first with you being able to create the life that you want for yourself while you live.
Wow. So, I mean, there's so much there, right? There's so much there. And I really appreciate everything that you said. And what I really want our listeners to feel is that everything that we need, we already have.
Yeah.
And that being empowered is not an external process, but it's really a process of coming home to who you already are and understanding that being in that genius state at 5 years old, that we have always had everything that we've needed to be happy, creative, joyful, productive, everything that we've always wanted to be in our lives, we've had it the whole time. And it's a process. What it means to be empowered means returning home to who we really are, not following a yellow brick road to an imaginary land where, you know, we think we need something outside of us to validate us.
Right. I think of life as a marketplace, and think of every person that comes into this world having their own product to bring to the marketplace. The only way we can deliver on that product, though, is if we accept our own and be ourselves. The minute we start altering ourselves, suppressing ourselves, holding ourselves back, trying to be more like someone else, we then forfeit the product that we came into the marketplace to deliver. We all have something to trade, and the whole entire universe is built on that trading system. You know, so we say we live in a supply and demand universe, but that's not all the whole story. We live in a supply, demand, and deliver universe. So there's an onus on each of us to deliver what our unique, one-of-a-kind self was designed to bring into the world in this marketplace. Most of us have given up our product. So we're wondering why we're not doing so well, why we're not happy, why we don't feel fulfilled. It's because you've given up on your product. And guess what your product is? Your natural expression. That's your product. That is the key to your power.
And you're the only one that has it, the only one that can sell it, right? It's unique. It's unique to every one of us.
Yeah.
Not to be emulated, you know, not to be copied, just to honor that that's who you are, not always trying to be someone else. It's amazing how the world, as you say, has convinced us that we are not going to be successful until we're somebody else.
Damn, that's deep, Martin, because could you say it again? Because what you said is a mouthful.
I said that the world has convinced us that we will not be successful, we will not be beautiful until we are someone else. That's what the world has convinced us. So as you said, we change our hair, our lips, our hips, you know, we change everything in order to we feel like we cannot be validated unless we're somebody else.
And now imagine how could that not be like the caterpillar crawling on the ground, struggling within yourself, going from frustration to unhappiness to depression, disappointment. That's the constant life. Why? Because the beauty, the majesty, the royalty that you represent, you are in denial of. You are declaring that it's not in you, that it's outside of you. And then you spend all of your life down there looking outside of yourself for what you were born with from the very beginning when you came into this world. It's time to turn back around and go home. Go home back to you, back to the natural you, back to the you that's so beautiful that when you finally see yourself, all you're going to do is break down in tears of joy because you're going to finally see for the first time in your life the design that God had in mind when he looked into your eyes. And I heard Reverend Ike say this one time, and it blew my mind, and it may go over your head. But he says, I want you to imagine that God imagined you exactly as you are. And then we come into this world, get caught up in the socialization, and then we start trying to change what God imagined us being into something that a man or another woman imagined us being. So what essentially we do is make somebody else God over us. And we become an object rather than a living being, a living God in human form, or goddess in human form.
Objectified. All of us have been objectified.
We've all been objectified. We've all become a thing. And right now, what we are talking about is the road of coming out of being a thing to being a being once again, to getting back into being a being. Albert Einstein said this, and I think it's very important. He says, when the bees go, not too long after we go. And when I hear him say bees, I don't just think of the bees that pollinate the flowers. I think of the idea of being. That when the being in us goes, not too long after we go. In other words, when we give up being who we naturally are, we become something other than human beings. We become beasts in human form or robots.
That's powerful. And as you always say, we're not human doings, we're human beings.
Right.
Once we see that, we're the ones that get to judge who we are, get to define who we are, and it's not defined by what we do. The sooner that we realize that, the better we're going to be and the better this world is going to be too.
Yes.
Well, Ragivah Mahdi, I appreciate you as always. I appreciate all of the wisdom that you've shared with me and our listeners, and just encourage everybody, reminding everybody that this is a journey we're on together. That this is not just about one individual's wisdom, but this is about all of us realizing our own wisdom, being in our own genius, and we want you to walk with us on this journey. This is not a journey to be followed. Nobody's trying to be followed here. We want us all to be walking side by side to a better world. We want you to spread the word about what we do. You listen to us because you like what we talk about. You listen to us because you want to walk side by side with us on this journey. We want you to share that with other people. Come to soulfocusedgroup.com. That's soulfocusedgroup.com. Look at our offerings. Listen to all of our podcasts. If you don't want to go there to listen to our podcast, go to Spotify and listen to our podcast. Go to iTunes and listen to our podcast. Join in with this journey with us. We want you to know that we love you. We care about each and every one of you, right? We want you to be safe. We want you to be well. And we want more than anything, we want all of you to stay soul focused.
Yes.
If you wish to support and represent the Soul Focus Group, check out our apparel store at our website, www.soulfocusedgroup.com/shop.